Welcome everybody to DAT Poker Podcast, episode 84 for September 30th, 2020. I am your host, A. Schwartz, alongside Roscoe P. Coltrane. And Mr. Terrence Chen in the hinterlands of British Columbia. Terrence, how are you?
Good. Insert witty comment here. Summer's ending, so sad.
Has anybody else called it the hinterlands where you live? Is that the first?
Probably just you on the show.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, I feel special. And Mr. Daniel Negreanu in Las Vegas. Daniel, how are you?
Yeah, just enjoying being here, in the United States of America. I've never felt more connected to my fellow Americans here after last night. It felt like we all kumbaya came together. Everyone was equally angry and upset, and the world was burning. So, yeah.
And I want to get you to go on the record right now and denounce white supremacy. Are you prepared at this point?
Well, hold it. Let's start with you doing. Let's start with what about Terrence in that fight when he said he was going to beat the guy and he didn't beat the guy? Okay, let's go there. What about that? Right? Well, let's focus on that. Forget it. I'm gonna show you how this whole. Imagine, you know what that should have been? Just briefly talk about it. We do the Zoom thing, which is fantastic. Ross could actually on Zoom mute the shit out of somebody, which is exactly what we needed last night. Right? It was a Zoom call where one person talks, the other one shuts the fuck up for 2 whole fucking minutes and lets the other person speak, which we did not have one segment of while Biden was speaking. So what a shit show last night. Last thing I'll say on it, the false equivalency thing drove me nuts. It was all these 3 guys all arguing. I'm like, are you guys not paying attention? It's one child who will not shut the fuck up, the other guy getting cut off, and the moderator saying, hey, will you shut the fuck up? It's his turn to talk. What a shit show, man. Just complete shit show for America.
It was, I managed to not watch. I'm so proud of myself. I didn't watch it. I just I can't watch it.
I can't believe that many people did watch it.
I know.
It's 70 million, and it's an obscene number of people watching.
To be fair, there were no sports on.
That's true.
I don't think it would have mattered. I mean, this is a big one, right? Everyone's really in their camp, and everyone wanted to see what would happen. And I think from the Trump campaign, their goal is to see Biden lose it, and just have a moment where he doesn't know where he is or what town he's at or whatever. And I really believe, from what I heard, that there was a speech pathologist that they spoke to with the goal of trying to get Biden off track, right? Because somebody who stutters with who struggles with a stutter, right? If you interrupt their speech pattern, the goal there is to get them off track, right? The problem I think that Trump did was he would butt in, but then he'd just start talking. So Biden could just kind of sit back and wait for him to be like, all right, what was I saying? Thinking again, so he never had that moment. So basically I think Biden did what he needed to do, which was not look like, a senile old man or something like that. And Trump, I don't know what his goal was, but if it was to be just a rude bully asshole, he was successful as fuck. I don't know that that's an ideal solution, but hey, that's what happened.
So sorry, I just want to say real quick. I piled on Biden at back when he was minus 110. I think I'm not piled. I mean, this wasn't a Mayweather bet or anything, but I have almost 10K on it. Do you guys have any election action?
Yep. I have $200 on Joe Biden at even money.
Oh, okay. Well, you got a good price at least.
It is illegal here in the United States of America to bet on elections. I don't actually, but I don't really, whatever. This is too important. I don't even give a shit about the betting lines and all. Everyone's obviously gamblers were interested in this sort of thing. I just want it to be over and have a peaceful transfer of power, whatever that looks like. And I'm not optimistic about that. I really think that
it's not going to be a transfer. It's going to be a continuation.
Continuation. That's correct. And it will be smooth transition. Yeah.
I'm sure it's all going to go really well. Rich Ryan, if you're interested in the odds, follow Rich Ryan on Twitter. He posts regular updates on the current betting lines if you're looking to get some action down. Daniel, what's it like to go from full speed ahead, playing poker tournaments 14 hours a day for 2 months straight, sitting to nothing? What do you even do? Is it just recharge? What are you doing?
Well, it's been good, a little bit of relaxation home. I went and played golf today. Been working on the swing a little bit here and there. I've obviously been working out some details, which I know we'll talk about on the show for my upcoming heads-up match in terms of ironing out. We think we've ironed out a lot, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I'm starting to okay, how am I going to freaking, study for this? So I've done Twitter polls, obviously, because that's the way to go, right? ask people on Twitter, like, how often should I 3-bet? And if they say 20%, how could they all be wrong, right? I will say this, the polls that I did, I think I did 4. This is rare when you do like a poll where the majority get it wrong, right? It's rare when you get 4 options. They got each one wrong. Like they got 100% of the polls wrong in terms of numbers. So I've basically been doing, very basic introduction to Heads Up to get sort of my feet wet and, kind of like thinking about the match. And, the difficult thing is there's really no way to practice for me because I'm here in Las Vegas and, WSOP doesn't have Heads Up tables. I don't believe that even ACR does, and I can't play on GG because, I'm in the United States. So it doesn't leave me a lot of opportunity to, I guess, train in that regard. So I just have to watch a lot of old Phil Hellmuth videos. I watched the National Heads Up Championship with Scotty Wynn and Huck Seed, and I feel like that's going to keep me as up to date as possible with, the GTO there. Like watching the old videos.
Can I make a suggestion that you get a deck of cards like Doyle used to?
Got one right here.
Yeah,
okay.
And just deal hands out like Doyle did.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing for percentages. Like, all right, here, I got 10-5 offsuit. All right, I'm not going to 3-bet that. All right.
Wait, you got to 3-bet it a portion of the time. You got to.
Oh, not that one. 10-Jack offsuit. I'm going to raise the button with that one. Okay. 10-Jack, we're going to raise the button. If he raises, I don't want to 3-bet that. I want to see the flop. I'm not going to 3-bet with that. King-7 of spades. All right, we got an open. And maybe sometimes when I'm fucking pissed off or stuck in something, I'll just 3-bet that too. There we go. What more do I need to learn, guys? It's not that hard.
I think you're ready. It sounds like you're ready to me.
I mean, feels up.
Right.
What I need to do is find a way to play one of you guys, and get some practice. We'll have to create some software.
Crush our souls. Yeah. All right. We got some quick. I know we're not a hockey podcast, but interesting nonetheless. The Tampa Bay Lightning have taken the COVID Stanley Cup, and in dramatic fashion, so to speak, I guess, playing the Dallas Stars, beating them in 6. Dallas put up a good fight, and I don't know about you guys, but it's once your team gets knocked out, if you don't have any action on it, which I really didn't after that point, it's hard to watch, and especially in this current environment without fans. It was just like, I can't watch this. I didn't watch a ton. Did you guys?
I think I watched maybe a period and a half. Like if you combine everything, I also had people coming over and some friends coming over the last couple of days. But I tried, I mean, Tampa Bay's an exciting team, so I enjoyed watching them a little bit. So coming out of it, but it is 2 teams that I don't care about, and also 2 really not very big hockey markets, right? It's not like stories like Tampa Bay's won the cup recently. Dallas hasn't, but I mean, it's not like you can think about the long-suffering Dallas Stars fans that have just been yearning for a cup for their entire lifetimes. If it was a team like the Islanders, you have, not that I particularly care for the Islanders, but they haven't won a cup in a long time. They're kind of got some hockey history behind them and some fans that are big deal, But I saw today that the Tampa actually held their Stanley Cup celebration, and it was just crowds of people, multiple fans drinking out of the Stanley Cup. They let they had multiple fans drinking out of the Stanley Cup. And it's we're swapping spit. This is what we're doing. We're swapping spit with strangers, and we're just piling on to in the Stanley Cup. So I was it made me think well, shit, at least I think it's a good thing that a major hockey market did win. Can you imagine if Vancouver had won, if Montreal had won, if Calgary had won,
is this before or after Vegas, we burn our city down when we win? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you would have COVID outbreaks and property damage in Vancouver or Montreal for that matter. Imagine if you had a city that gave a shit about hockey, how much you could just if there was a way to profit off the COVID pandemic by just betting the over on the outbreaks in that city, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, Toronto, Vegas, even Minnesota, Detroit, any of those big hockey markets, thank God it was Tampa, which I mean, Florida has its own problems with COVID, but I mean, Jesus Christ.
Daniel, did you watch much?
So that's a great question too. So I found myself this week, just finished, I was watching the NBA, the finals here, LeBron James. Yesterday, I found myself watching for the first Blue Jays baseball.
What?
They had that fun little wild card thing going on. And it was actually, I was surprised how I found it kind of interesting when you actually watch it, right? But I would echo what you guys both said in that Dallas, Tampa Bay, the issue I had there is I bet Dallas the first two series that they played, and I liked them against Vegas, but felt awkward betting them. I did not like them against Tampa, and I bet Tampa as well. So I kind of had two teams that I really wasn't going to bet on, and I was kind of like removed from that. So, and again, like I didn't really have any sort of fantasy guys on either team that I really root for. I mean, on those teams on fantasy, I got Rupe Hintz on Dallas, and I got Ryan McDonough on Tampa. Yeah, you know, whatever. So yeah, I found it to be like, and also, you know, partly Dallas plays a style that's not all. I mean, I like betting on them, but they're not all that fun to watch. You know, like you saw that in the Vegas series. They just kind of like bend and don't break. Tampa's great. Like watching them on the power play. I would watch a whole 60 minutes of just Tampa power plays. That's just super fun. Like the way that they move the puck around. It's fantastic. But yeah, no, I think you guys are right. And I never thought of it the way Terrence explained it, but like maybe it was a good thing that like Toronto, you know, New York didn't, and, you know, make the final or win somehow because of the celebrations. It'll be interesting to see what happens with NBA or baseball. I don't know.
Did anybody? So they're piping in the crowd noise. Did they pipe in the boos for Bettman? I didn't see.
I think somebody actually made a Twitter video of it. So in the real one, they didn't, which is unfortunate because that would have been pretty epic.
And because he's really good. Sorry to interrupt you, but Bettman's really good.
I was going to say it would have shown a lot of self-awareness if they really did.
I'm surprised he didn't actually. Yeah. He strikes me as somebody who would do that. Does anybody want Jersey? It's Jersey quiz time.
Oh boy.
What do you got? What do you got here? And who do you think's on the back?
Of that team.
Who do you think?
Come on.
Come on, you guys. You should know this.
What league is that team in?
Syracuse.
What league are they even in?
I don't know.
We get any hints?
Are they in the Central Hockey League? It's
the ACC?
The fictional Central Hockey League, I believe.
Do they play a zone?
Fictional.
So they're like the other team in Slapshot?
This is like Slapshot?
Yes. Right. Now, who's on the back?
Oh.
Do you remember?
Not Hansen. Oglethorpe. Hey, that's a good one to have.
Ogie Oglethorpe. He travels with his own lawyer. By the way, that movie does not hold up to politically correct 2020 standards.
Probably good.
Nothing does.
No. All right, let's move on. Some more sad news. Obviously, we talked about Mike Sexton. Not as well known a poker player, but Darvin Moon, who finished second in 2009 in the main event and became sort of a everyman sort of folk hero to poker players around the U.S. He passed away after complications after surgery. And obviously very sad for him and his family because I remember Darvin. I just remember him being everyman. And this guy, he was a logger and he lived in like a trailer before, you know, he won the 5.1 million for coming second. By the way, does anybody remember who he finished second to in 2009?
Joe Cada, of course.
Cada, exactly. And how about
winner.
famous poker players that he knocked out at the final table? Darvin did?
Ivey.
Phil
It's got to be Ivey, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a great final. I mean, I remember how many eyeballs were on that one because of Phil Ivey.
I never sweat a final table of the World Series main event more than that one because I would have lost $1 million if Darvin Moon won.
Wow. And he had a chip lead heads up.
Like a bunch of people. Huh?
Didn't he have a chip lead heads up? He got the chip lead heads up, too.
He had the chip lead like the whole way. And I mean, I bet he wouldn't win, and I laid like a ridiculous price, so I was risking $1 million.
You bet it at nine-handed? Because I bet it heads up. I bet Joe Cada heads up, but did you bet it at nine-handed?
I bet it nine-handed.
Oh, so you laid a price.
I think what I bet was, I think one of the big bets I had was Phil Ivey versus Darvin Moon, even. And Phil, had he was like 7th or 8th in chips, and Darvin came in as the big chip leader or something like that. And I obviously figured, Phil will be able to maneuver. So I was definitely sweating. Like Joe Cada got it in with like deuces or something, and I was like, my heart was palpitating. I mean, I was like, this is $1 million, a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was this thing where Darvin had, I remember this too, because I had bet, not as big as that, but I had bet Joe Cada the heads up, because you remember they stopped the play once it got heads up. And so they put out a line, and Joe Cada barely had a chip premium. I don't remember exactly what the chips were, but like they were only giving him about a 10 or 15% chip premium. So I bet a lot on Joe Cada. But you remember they got it in on the turn, excuse me. And Darvin Moon actually has like an open ender when all the money goes in on a turn. I think Cat has like a set or 2 pair. And it's like, man, that's like you're a 4-1 favorite, but that's just for like a lot of money, like a really big sweat. I remember sweating.
I believe the board was 10-10-9 and Cat called off with Jack 9 and Darvin had 7-8, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. So yeah, big sweat for me too. But you're absolutely right, Adam, that the Darvin Moon was, definitely the best story since Moneymaker that happened, and it would have been a sort of a second Moneymaker. Everybody liked them. Yeah, it was definitely a big part of poker history, because again, one of the most watched final tables because of the presence of Ivy, the David and Goliath story there, and then Joe Cata finally emerging as the young gun on the scene. And of course, Joe Cata would end up, we didn't know, was obviously a pro at the time, but would end up becoming a super accomplished tournament player and World Series player in his own right. So yeah, condolences to the Moon family. And this sucks. Like I hope next week we don't have to talk about anybody dying. That would be nice.
Yeah, no kidding.
Darvin was an interesting character in a lot of ways. Like I think a lot of people in the media and everybody at the time, they looked at this guy as like you said, Moneymaker 2.0. And the question was, like, at the time when he did it, is that still even possible? Because after Moneymaker, everyone assumed, like, well, we're never going to have a fluke quite like that again or something along those lines. So Darvin was like that hope. But one of the other interesting things about Darvin, which is, I guess, a testament to his character in a lot of ways, like, that was a time where, deals were prevalent, where people could get a bunch of money to just wear a logo, whether it was Full Tilt, Pokerstars, UB. And, Darvin was offered left, right, and center. And it's like, nah, I'm going to just go with my New Orleans Saints hat and, be me. And after the fact, after it was over, he just kind of did his own thing. And he never, like, searched the limelight. He was, really humble in it. And I think he appreciated what he represented in that event at the time. But, like, he never let it get to him. Because you see a lot of, like, I think you could see a lot of people change. It's crazy because it's like, it's the equivalent of reality TV for a lot of people. But before they're on reality TV, nobody knows who they are. They're just themselves, right? They go on reality TV. Now they're these big stars. And they change. They start to act different. They start to act like stars and whatever. So Darvin never fell for any of that. Not that you would expect the logger to do that, but I think a lot of people appreciated the way he carried himself in that regard. And he was never going to be the guy who's like, needing the limelight or, had to be the center of attention.
Yeah, he just kind of stayed the same guy, right? He never really changed, which was really cool because he won $5 million from a guy who won $130 Satellite to get his way into the main event. And to, not get caught up in it. Jamie Gold was an absolutely entertaining individual and everything he did after the main event, but he certainly, enjoyed being the main event champion and kind of sought out the spotlight a little bit where somebody, and then Darvin didn't win, but he won $5.3 million and he was very well known. And I think he started playing on the Heartland Poker Tour a lot and became a spokesman for them and just a down-to-earth guy because he was surrounded by guys that were like him. Like he didn't want to, jump into the 1,000, 2,000 or the game in Bobby's room with you, Daniel. I mean, he just wanted to go play poker for, how much more does he need? Here's a guy who made his life, living sort of paycheck to paycheck, wins 5.3 and he's, okay, I'll go back to,
your point, Adam, I'm looking at his Hendon mob right now. So first, second place finish to Joe Cata that we just mentioned, $5.18 million. His total lifetime earnings, $5.2 million. He would go on, the next cash he had was at the Foxwoods 500 plus 60 tournament. And then just a bunch of like $300, $200 tournaments. You mentioned the HPT tournaments where he played some main events and had some cashes in those, but as late as 2016, he was playing the Rio Daily Deep Stacks. And, a lot of the times when we see a guy win $5 million and he's playing the $200 Deep Stack at the Rio, it's because he made some bad life choices. So I don't think that's the case for Darvin Moon. I think, like you said, he just enjoyed playing poker and, he didn't think he was going to be a superstar, that he should jump into the big 25K and 100K buy-in tournaments. And he was a shit. And he never sought the spotlight, just wanted to play poker. And, if you can play poker for $300, why would you play it for $30,000? The rush seemed to be just the same for him. So, yeah.
All right. So, condolences to Darvin's family and I hope they can get through the tough time. Moving on, Isai Scheinberg was sentenced since we last did a show. Isai surrendered to authorities in the U.S. Of course, he'd had an outstanding warrant since Black Friday. And he decided that he wanted to finally, take the initiative to get this taken care of. And he moved. He didn't move. He surrendered himself, came to the U.S. and faced the music for what happened during Black Friday. And he was sentenced to time served and $30,000 fine. And, I saw a lot of people on Twitter. This one sort of was interesting because some people had a take on it, fantastic. That's what, he shouldn't have been charged in the first place. And then other people were like, you know what? He broke the law and he bought a bank or invested in a bank and, coded, willfully, or his business willfully coded transactions on credit cards to, what they weren't, golf balls and such. So they were saying, is this sort of a fair outcome to what the crime was? And wanted to get your guys' take. I know you guys both have, personal relationships with Isai, so it's sort of a tough spot to be in. But do you think, that's a just result to what happened?
I'll go first real quick. I mean, it's awesome news, okay? First and foremost. Like what this, we talk about, sometimes there is laws that are dumb, and we all agree that this is a stupid one, right? So something that is legal or illegal doesn't make it right or wrong, essentially. It doesn't go one hand in hand. And let's not forget that while he paid a $30,000 fine in time served, they bailed out the players in a big way. So they paid $800 million or whatever, because buying full tilt and taking in all that debt, it wasn't a business decision they did for like, ooh, we're going to make a lot of money off this. This was simply to like get in good with the DOJ. So it's essentially they look at that and they go, okay, that's a pretty big, thing you bailed us all out of, you bailed a lot of Americans out of, you bailed a lot of customers out of. So in addition to that, I don't remember, I remember Full Tilt specifically doing the decoding for golf balls and things like that, but I don't believe that that's correct when it comes to what Isai was doing. I believe you're right in that he did buy a bank like Sun Life or something like that would transfer, so that would accept and do these transfers. But I do believe strongly, because I remember when I was with the company years ago, the lawyers from Stars were sending them to Full Tilt saying, you guys need to stop doing this, making it look like a flowers or a golf balls or something like that. So I'm pretty confident, maybe Terrence knows better, that it was Full Tilt that was doing that. What Isai did was bought a bank to, process a lot of these transfers.
Yeah, I don't have any more insight on that than you do, Daniel. You probably have more because you were with the company later than me, and all this stuff was probably 5 years after I left or more. But yeah, I've made it I've made my position pretty clear on this. Like Isai is a hero of mine, and I think he should be a hero to poker players, and I think he should be immediately in the Poker Hall of Fame, and it's a travesty that he's not already. Here's a guy who I like, because I have personal experience with it. It's you can say that it colors my perception, but I'm able to give unique insights with respect to his character and his morality. And I never knew Isai to do anything other than the most ethical, honest decision in that moment. And he's proof that, in an era where so many people say, oh, like, we should kill all the billionaires and hang them up by their heels and slit their throats because they're all scourges on humanity. He is proof that you can be a successful businessman and hit the elite level and hit that billionaire club and still be a good person. And not just a good person, a person that goes above and beyond. Like Daniel said, bailing out the Full Tilt players, they absolutely didn't have to do that. Did they do that to some extent to maybe buy some legal favors down the road? Maybe. Does that matter if you're somebody who was not going to make the rent if they didn't get their full tilt money back? I don't think you really care about that. So yeah, I'm super happy to see this news to see that he will not spend any time in prison or anything like that, and to pay essentially what I think somebody posted a GIF of Isai looking for that $30,000 under his couch cushions. I thought that was hilarious, and so to him basically. For the DOJ, the prosecution to essentially say like, okay, listen, like like enough has changed in the interim period since these charges were first brought, and the fact that you have done good for this community and done it the right way, we are not going to pursue this further. And I read an article by Haley Hintz, and it was a really good article, as all of hers are, saying that it's pretty hard to throw Isai behind bars when you didn't do it to Ray Batar. I mean, like, if you're not gonna put Ray Batar behind bars, it's pretty goddamn hard to put Isai Scheinberg behind bars. So yeah, real happy that Isai's put this all behind. And Black Friday, essentially we've closed the book on it. 9 years later, something good has actually happened in 2020. Isai Scheinberg can go wherever he wants. He can go to the United States.
I want to say one thing about it too, and I don't know that I don't know if this is public. I don't even know if I'm allowed or supposed to say it, but I'm going to tell everybody anyway. When he sold the company, along with Mark, his son, who was, took on a large role, they didn't have to do this. They sold the company. Every single employee of the company was given a bonus based on how many years they were with the company. So it was essentially like, I believe it was an extra month's salary for every year. So you basically, let's say, for example, you were with the company for 10 years, you got a full year just bonus salary, like just as a gift for all the hard work you've done. And that was completely not in anybody's contract. It was completely out of the goodness of their heart. So they were like obviously making a shit ton of money and incredibly wealthy, but they never forgot, what it was like to be compassionate, to be understanding. Like they created a forum, or they created a landscape for poker that really was designed with fairness in mind. And after they sold, obviously things changed and, got more corporate, but it was one of the few times you'll ever see sort of a mom and pop organization grow that large, and continue to operate like it's a family, like, everyone is an important member of it. And, the customer's best interest is always at heart and stuff like that. So, it was sad when they sold, and we understand why it had to happen. But I wanted to just share that real quickly, because I don't think a lot of people realize like how much good he did for people. Loved working for Pokerstars. Like I'm telling you, like before the change, people had major pride. Like you saw logos, you saw people wearing that on their off days, right? Things did change, with a shift, and people started to feel a little bit,
Yeah, I want to ask you about that, Daniel. What was it like? What was that shift like in morale? What was that shift? How difficult was it, given that you're working with people at the top of the company? How difficult? I mean, you had insight on it, right? You could see everything and what had changed. Talk us a little bit about that.
Well, I think initially there was a little bit of like excitement. There was a little bit of fear. There's a little bit of like bewilderment, like what's going to happen, right? And I would say, in the first month or so, everything seemed okay. They're going to make a couple adjustments. All right, well, those are, they're a corporate company. They have, a board to address. So they're going to make some adjustments, rake increases or whatever, or rake price changes is what Eric Coldwise used to call them. Drove me nuts. Price changes. Call it what it is. It's a raise and rake, right? So, and then we sort of saw like 2-3 months consecutive, there was like bad news. And I tried to talk to them and go, guys, I understand, like you need to do things in a way that like, helps your bottom line, but you can't just continue to do negative things and expect to have the favor of the poker community, and it will affect your brand and you will have some brand damage. But they really didn't have a lot of positive. So it was hard to spin, or if you want to say, or like, kind of look at any of the decisions they were making and say they were like player friendly. They were business decisions and they're fine. The one that really just sort of like blew everything apart, because the ones before were like, all right, new owners, they want to charge new prices. You can't fault them. That's their right. The S&E thing, when that happened, when they did this, when they said they were not going to honor the next year of what people had already earned in terms of an opportunity, and it was written on the website on the front, and I spoke out against it for months, and I never defended it, even when I was with the company. I put myself at risk of being sued myself at the time, because that's like breach of contract. You can't like do stuff like that, but I didn't give a shit. I was going to speak for what was right at the time. And I think after that, when people saw how that was bungled and how that handled, it was like everyone had to do sort of a check, right? It's like, okay, I work for this company and I've worked for them for a long time, right? They've just done something horrible, and there's no other way to look at it to the customers. And we're going to lose that sort of goodwill that's been built up over all that time. And from that point on, I mean, there was never a recovery. And I told them flat out, I said, like, if you do this, your brand will never recover. You're breaking a promise so significant to people and to so many of your like most loyal customers. You can have the argument, and I agree wholeheartedly, that the whole system was a mess and needed to be changed. It was a stupid system after a while. And I've been saying that for years, because you're essentially giving more money to the people that are taking money out of your site. Give it to the people that are donating and losing, But just the way that it was done and the way that it was handled, it just left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And just, I think the amount of turnover we started to see after that, and I don't know, just everything changed that moment.
So when I think back, I've been doing this podcasting thing for, 14, 15 years, something like that, about poker. And I think about, some of the interviews that we've had and some that we never got. And I think right at the top of the list would have been fantastic to have Isai as an interviewee. And I think maybe Isai, Chris Ferguson after what happened are about the two that I think that would be fascinating to have. So
he's just so private. Like, I'm not going to give you 100 to 1 that you can't get him, but like it's probably close. Like,
well, I have two guys that have his email address, so I do.
You
guys feel like reaching out and seeing if he's interested in telling the story.
I could send an email, but you'll get odds. You'll get 100 to 1. But
Daniel will give us 100.
He's so private. Yeah,
we've got
AOL one. No,
he's also. I don't know about you, Daniel, but I've also always found it hard to understand through his accent. It took me like a solid 6 months, and he was my boss, so it was really important that I carefully understood what he said.
No, there's no question about it. I remember when Brian would be negotiating with him with my contract, my agent, and stuff like that. Like, phone calls are difficult sometimes because like he does have a very strong Russian Jewish accent, and over the phone it's even more difficult, especially if it's loud and whatever. I remember, after Black Friday, having a call with him, and there had to be some adjustments to everything, right? Like you're going to be missing a huge percentage of your revenue. So, he called me up to, ask if I was willing to make some adjustments to mine, right? And it was like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this with folks. I'm not sure I'm understanding exactly what you want right here, So, but yeah, like I understood him pretty well, but most people I knew struggled to fully get it.
And Mark too. Mark is Canadian. I think he wasn't born in Canada, but he was raised there, and he's so private too. But I feel like you're a little more live with Mark, even though I don't have a direct contact with Mark. But he lives a fun lifestyle, and it would be great to have Mark.
It would be fun.
Stories. That would be a good time. Great coup. Yeah.
And to your point, Terrence, I know we talk about it every year about the Hall of Fame and, shake our heads, but there is no excuse now. He needs to get in the Hall of Fame as soon as possible. So hopefully that happens. Let's move on. Danny, you talked earlier about working out some of the details between the heads-up match between yourself and Doug Polk that has been tentatively scheduled. I'm not sure if we have dates. Let's find out what's the plan.
All right, so here's what we got so far, okay? From top to bottom, we've got 200, 400, 2 tables, okay? We've got the structure set to be 100 big blind stacks, and we're going to do auto top-up. So, that means you're always playing with a minimum of 100. The pots can get much bigger if people, have to rebuy and double chips and chip up and stuff like that. In addition to that, let me see.
So there's auto top up, but there's no resetting of stacks. Like you could potentially be like 500 big blinds deep.
You could, but then they will reset at the end of each session, right?
Okay.
So here's what I'm willing to agree to, and this we have not ironed out, but I imagine it's agreeable from what I've heard from some of the people at Poker Go, that I'm willing to play at least 2-hour sessions, okay? And from that point on the hour, like we can both agree to play another hour. And if one person wants to be done, they're done. So I'm willing to do at least that because I get tired, after freaking an hour and a half. In addition to that, we come to terms on the number of hands. So this is a little bit of a back and forth. Essentially what it will be is it'll be 25,000 hand match. However, after 12,500 hands, whoever's losing by whatever amount can wave the white flag and say, tap out. I've had enough. You've destroyed me. It's fine. The other thing that we put on the table, or that I thought we'd throw out, is if we both agree to play, well, if the loser says, no, I want to keep playing, if both parties agree, we can kick up the stakes on the second half of the match and play an additional 12,500 hands. As far as what I'm comfortable doing and some of the stuff we haven't ironed out, I don't see how it makes any sense for me to show my hole cards. It seems like it would be a massive mistake, right? I said this, I don't know, on another podcast, but like imagine, the main event, right? And you have Grandma Betty. And Grandma Betty's playing the feature table with the hole cards, right? And all of us, a couple hours in, everyone's like, this Grandma Betty, man, she gets aces a lot. She's 3-betting and all this kind of stuff, right? So all the pros just think she's running hot, okay? Now 2 hours later, they see Grandma Betty. She's re-raising with 9-deuce, 8-4. All of a sudden, all that shit that would have worked for Grandma Betty ain't going to work no more because they're all going to make major adjustments, and they know what adjustments to make. Grandma Betty's not equipped. I'm not equipped. I'm going to come in doing what I'm doing. I'm hoping it's innovative and unique and different. I hope he has struggles to figure it out. I'm not going to give a cards up ability to like dissect my betting percentages and stuff like that so that him and his team can like break down. So in that regard, the match will be live streamed. We're working on when and where. The location, obviously, for me, if it's possible to do on GG Poker, that is number one for me. We're working on getting a firm legal opinion. A lot of people have gotten legal opinions that are meh. Nobody really seems to have a clear one yet. But if the legal opinion is that we can go ahead and do that, it makes no sense to not on a play money table where we settle up on the side. The other options are not very good, right? So that's my hope, is that somehow the legal opinion comes back positive. If not, we'll have to look at what's legal in Nevada, which is WSOP, which does not excite me one bit. I mean, it's just not what what I see, what I would like to happen. I would like to see it happen, maybe even as early as November 1st. I'm ready to go, by then, I would hope. And what else did I miss? Anything else? I don't know.
We mentioned this when the challenge was first put out, and you kind of mentioned it as not being super important, but you did mention that you thought you had a tells advantage, and I understand it's not the same, but I think for the fans, since a lot of part of your motivation is doing this for the fans, I would love to see webcams on both guys. Is that something that could possibly be on the table? I think that would make it so entertaining, especially with the absence of hole cards. I think everybody playing all along at home trying to be amateur tell detectors would be super fun, and even seeing your reactions to bad beats and stuff like that would be great.
So obviously we've been speaking to the people at Poker Go, both I have and I know he has independently as well, about how we want to make this look. And I said, listen, there's no reason why we need to leave the house. It's 2020, okay? I don't need to go, wear a mask and sit in a thing and drive all the way down to the Poker Go studio to film, right? We can set up, a fancy thing at my house. We can set up the webcam. They can do the same at his house. Oh, here's another thing we also agreed to, and this was more from him, and I get it, it's fine. For, at least some point of the match or early on or maybe throughout or whatever, I don't know, have somebody just take a sweeping look to see what we've got going on, which will lead into a story that we have, coming up, obviously, about real-time assistance or anything, any sort of hanky-panky going on. Me having Phil Ivey go, raise him, in the corner or something like that. So I guess from an integrity perspective that he thought that was important. I don't. I don't think he's going to cheat me. The fact that he thinks I'm going to, I would. But listen, it's fine. If you want to be on the up and up, I'm totally down to do that. So we've agreed upon that. But so we'll just see how they want to shoot it, how we get it out. But I would imagine it'll be, a spectacle for people. And the reason I don't want to show hole cards, and I get it, listen, I want to make this fun for the fans, but I also want to give myself the best chance to compete and win, right? And it would just be if you were me, and would you do it? If the money mattered for you, would you show your whole cards in a spot like this? Just stupid.
Yeah. Nope.
I don't buy the argument that it's
if
fair.
If I'm your lobbyist, I'm definitely lobbying for webcams. Not because I think you mentioned him being a tell box, but I mean obviously online poker is different. You don't see the guy handle cards and chips, but I mean I think it would be at worst neutral. But entertaining to have some webcams on to get some live reactions from people. From
we haven't ironed out exactly how the show will work, but I would imagine that'll be part of it. I think it'd be worthwhile, if you have a webcam. So one of the ways you can, detect against real-time assistance is you can put a webcam on my screen. The only danger there, right, is Mike Postle, right? If there is a webcam on my screen while I'm playing, what if somebody has access to that and is watching that and can see my actual cards? That could be problematic. So,
and it doesn't really guard against it because, if you were the kind of person who was running assistant software, you could just have it on an angle where nobody could see it. It doesn't really do a whole lot. I think that's silly. You could have a tablet built into your glass desk that's running solvers. I mean, you're never going to have, there has to be some element of trust.
Here's the thing, I could be offended by it, but I'm not. I'm just going to choose to whatever. We don't get along, obviously. We've had our beefs. I don't think, based on what I know of him, that he would ever cheat in this thing. And I would expect, despite all the attacks against me and all these kind of things, that my, reputation in poker for the last 20-some-odd years, right, would garner some respect in the idea that, okay, I'm doing this in good faith and I'm not going to cheat. What I would risk for something like that would be so incredibly stupid. And I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. If I win, I want to win fair and square. I would never do such a thing. But again, you can't fully trust anyone in this world anymore, especially with what's available out there. So I'll agree to it. But I would hope that he would publicly say what I'm saying, which is, I don't think he would cheat. but I'm more than open to showing everything I got. I would assume and I would hope that he'd have the same respect to say, I don't think Daniel would cheat either. And I would hope that's true. I don't know if it is.
All right, so that's it up. We'll look forward to it, Daniel. And you're probably hard in the lab. Is that what he says there? You're in the lab. You're working on your game. You're trying to play Ross heads up. So that's probably gonna seal the victory when you practice on Ross. But all right, so let's move on. You alluded to it. The real-time solver situation, real-time assistance, RTA. This has sort of been a big topic. A couple of weeks ago, high-stakes poker player Feder Cruz, high-stakes cash online player. Interesting story because he was caught by his roommates using a real-time solver. So what a real-time assistance is a solver on the side as you're playing poker and plugging the current flop, your cards, other cards.
That's not all, just to interrupt real quickly.
Sure.
That's not all it is. Like RTA, which is the short form for it, takes on many forms, right? There's the extreme version that you're talking about, which is actual solves, but really anything real-time assistance. So if you have charts on your screen, like you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to play where you like, oh, here's my pre-flop chart. I'm supposed to raise with this hand. I'm supposed to fold with that. Like basically anything that aids you to make poker decisions in that regard is considered real-time assistance.
Right, and the difficult thing is with the vast amounts of flops and textures and hands, to be able to have a solver for every situation to spit in the variables and spit out a form of action is quite difficult, right? Because of how many different variables there are. Well, this guy Feder Cruz had he had two computers. So he had a computer running with his online poker, and he had another one off to the side that he was using to run his real-time assistance. And he had a sophisticated, apparently this is what has been reported, he had a sophisticated folder system with an easy way for him to scan through every situation that could come up. Then he could find a solution for exactly where he was at in every hand very quickly. Remember, he's got to look this up in very little time. And he was able to design a folder system to be able to do that. With all the different textures and spit out a GTO approach. So he was caught by his roommates who he'd always, I guess it was strange because he'd go in, close the door, and he'd never done that before. And he was very, protective, I guess, of his space. And they decided to call him out. Even though they lived with him, they decided to call him out and bring it to the poker community and say, hey, this is happening. Which is admirable of them, and I know Daniel, you're probably because he was playing on GG Poker. This is one of the sites that he was playing on.
I played him on the Heads Up tournament, and I freaking smashed him.
Did you?
I'm assist this, bro. Like I was like,
all your solvers you want, pal. Let's go.
What the hell? Yeah. He was streaming the whole thing. Apparently, like later people told me that he talked a bunch of smack about my game, and he wasn't even close. RTA this.
So GG took it upon themselves to dive into it, which is great, and they've come out and they've taken a harsh stance to people who've done this. And so I'm just going to read and we'll go through this as talk about the different things as we go through their statement. But let's get through it. At GG Poker Network, we firmly believe poker to be a battle of wits that is meant to be experienced without the use of any real-time assistance whatsoever. And there's a link to define what real-time assistance is. To this end, we're among the first prohibit heads-up displays, and we've been quick to ban players in the past that are using prohibited software. While there always be deceitful individuals trying to cheat the game and steal from their fellow players, our security team continues to be on the cutting edge with regards to detection and protection and maintains a zero-tolerance policy to real-time assistance. Recently, a high-profile RTA case was brought to light. This is the Feder Cruz. We have rededicated our efforts to combating RTA and have swiftly adopted enhanced RTA detection methods and improved our internal processes for handling these cheaters. Although there are public concerns that RTA is an imminent threat to the status quo and that is undetectable, that is patently false. Our security team is fully aware of the different ways that RTA is being used, and we want to emphasize that RTA is detectable. Through our upgraded detection methods, we've discovered a small group of RTA users on GG Poker Network. We've taken immediate action on those accounts as we continue to develop our processes. The measures we have taken are commensurate to the frequency and severity of RTA use. 13 accounts have been banned and $1.175 million confiscated to be returned to players. 27 accounts have been banned with no confiscation, and 40 accounts have been issued warnings. So I just want to stop there. There seems to be, Daniel, and I'm sure you've been talking with GG Poker Network about this, there seems to be sort of a case-by-case consideration of exactly what this person was doing, and then are we going to ban him? Are we going to warn him? Are we going to confiscate his money? Can you talk a little bit about that, I guess?
Yeah, obviously. So that's kind of why I touched on earlier that, there are different forms of real-time assistance in terms of what that looks like, right? On one extreme version, you have somebody using software and real-time solver software, and if they're doing that all the time, that's the most egregious and extreme, right? So that player, 100% gone, and you ain't getting paid for stuff like that, right? Then there's the other end of the spectrum. Let's say there's a player who was using, found a way to, create a HUD of some kind, or even less of a crime. Let's say, for example, using pre-flop charts, or, something along those lines that are still egregious, and maybe not using them all the time. Maybe doing, solves occasionally, so that you would call that moderate, right? So maybe that group is the group that gets banned, but we don't think they were doing it egregiously enough to confiscate the funds, right? And then the final group, those that are warned, are skirting with the borderlines of the issues of using it like minimally, but still using it, and are, we're given a stern warning. And I think, I really think it takes a balls the size of, like massive cojones to like actually do this, right? Because they've really put these guys on notice. Like, if you are doing this, if you are using real-time assistance and you're trying to do it on GG Poker, you will get caught, and you likely will have your funds confiscated from you if you do this. So just don't. Like, if you think it's borderline or whatever, send an email first, ask, is this okay? Make sure any third-party software you plan on using is kosher. Because if you do, for those that have been warned at the very least, right? Those players, like, they were like, I guess, maybe not egregious. Maybe it's as simple, and I'm just spitballing, but maybe it's as simple as you're playing, and then while you're playing, you're looking for a solve with a hand you just played, and you're playing a guy like in a 3-handed game. Maybe wait until the session's over to do your study, right? Just like, don't cross that line of, looking up solves while you're playing in game or something like that. So I think, like, it's also important too, for those that aren't using any of this, there's literally no concern for you whatsoever, right? If you're playing straight, even stronger than that, I would say, not only should you not be concerned, you should feel good and feel safe that Gigi's going to do everything it can to make sure that those people that are trying to skirt the system, and listen, money's on the line, people are always going to try to cut corners, people are always going to try to cheat and do the wrong things. It's 100% up to the company, the organization, to do everything in their power to catch these people and punish them in the most severe way possible, right? And I'm so proud of what Gigi's done here, and I thought it was really, really baller to just, throw it out there and go, yeah, we will not tolerate this. Like, there's no fear here. It's like, you are doing something wrong, you will pay a penalty, period. We want clean, fun games on GG. If you're not one of those players that can play that way, then, you're just not welcome in the player pool.
Yeah. So, I think Daniel nailed it. It's a really hard thing to do, right? To discover real-time assistance, and it is a very difficult job. But a very old colleague of mine, we talked about the early Pokerstars day, a guy I hired as a basic customer support rep back in 2003-ish. And he ended up becoming like head of Unibet and, having his consulting agency. A guy named Andrew West wrote a blog post about this and why poker sites should catch bots and, real-time assistance and why it's really important. I mean, it's important for the ecology of the game because obviously these guys who play perfectly are going to suck a disproportionate amount of money in the system because they're just so good relative to the field if you're using software. I mean, I think we found that in the Fedor Cruz case where you look at the post he made, where he's just making perfect decision after perfect decision. Though, even though Daniel crushed him in the heads up, I don't know if Daniel's super excited to play him 100 times in a row for a 10K buy-in if Fedor's using the
LFG
assistance.
Baby, bring it. LFG.
Okay. All right. But obviously these guys take a lot of money into the system and you just don't want them around. It's an aggressive approach. I think it's the correct approach to take money and confiscate money when you've got good proof of this happening. And I think, we trust that GG does so in this case until somebody actually steps forward and says, well, I was aggrieved and here's my counterpoint to say that, no, I wasn't cheating. that's the case. Couple things that Daniel mentioned. It's funny because as Daniel was talking, I started to think about, he mentioned things like pre-flop charts, and I was like, thinking like, I think I'm a little okay with that. Pre-flop charts, like they generally aren't perfect anyway. They're a good crutch kind of for beginning players. I'm not that upset if people decide to use those. I know, that people are going to use things like snap shove when they play, and it's hard to police against something like that because the fact is that a lot of times when you're under 10 big blinds, pretty much everybody who's playing correctly plays the same. When you're like 8 big blinds, there are some, under the gun limping things that happen, but for the most
Apparently
part,
you're not familiar with Phil Hellmuth.
I was going to say Phil Hellmuth busts it.
He raises with 2 3s with 2.5 big blinds or 3.5.
And dumps them after. Yeah, I mean.
By the way, Phil Hellmuth did tell me he invented GTO.
Yes,
Fact.
that's true. I mean, come on, that's a fact.
And internet poker in general, I would have to imagine.
So before we continue with this, Terrence, I want to just first congratulate you for your dedication to background.
Thank you.
With topic we're on, changing your background is fantastic.
I got to do something while Daniel's talking.
All right. The press release continues, and I want to get to some of this because I think there's some concern out there that, hey, if I'm playing GTO or I'm, just happen to be playing GTO and I get called out for, using real-time assistance when I'm not doing it and I'm just, playing well. So let's continue here. It says massive increases in data analysis are a big part of our new process. We also want to emphasize another critical factor. Our team deeply analyzes poker hands based on our proprietary algorithms with the assistance of some of poker's brightest poker minds. Their insights and contributions continually improve our algorithms. Through this process, we can quickly establish whether GTO poker play has occurred. Once we've made this determination, we look for a variety of other factors to determine whether said GTO play involved the use of real-time assistance. In addition to our technical enhancements, we're making it known to RTA cheaters that GG Poker Network is no place for them. Henceforth, any cheaters found using RTA to gain an advantage will be faced with our strictest measures, permanent ban and confiscation of funds. Further to our cause, we've implemented a community-focused reporting system to expedite the removal of cheaters. Players are now able to report any suspicious activity during gameplay, streamlining the reporting process. And then it goes on to talk about, how to do that,
Yeah, I mean, it's literally within the software. It says, like a report can be, like during the hand history, you can actually put in a report. You can go to your Pokercraft, which is sort of your, where you have all your statistics and things, and you can make the claim in real time, like you don't have to wait later, and that will get directly streamlined to, the people that are in charge of security.
So to the concern for people who, because, it spells out that if you're playing GTO, then we've got some ways to try and figure out if you're actually using RTA. So I've seen some tweets out there, hey, hang on a second. What if I play perfectly? Am I going to be called out for using real-time assistance? And so, I mean, GG Poker can't just tell everybody how they're going to do it because that's a roadmap for cheaters, and they don't want to do that. However, is this concern well-founded, do you guys think? And Terrence, why don't you go first, and then Daniel can finish. But is this concern of people, hey, I could be playing perfect GTO and I'm going to get called out for using RTA?
Well, I mean, as somebody who's only minimally tried to study perfect no-limit hold'em GTO strategy and use solvers, like there's no way that's going to fit into a human brain. Like it's just no-limit hold'em perfect GTO strategy is impossibly hard to memorize. Like it's just never going to happen. So I mean, if you've got the really simple case of this guy is like 3-betting at exactly the right frequency with exactly the right combinations, like you can just be like, okay, we're done with that guy. Most cheaters are probably going to be a little smarter. They're going to start throwing some subterfuge into the mix and playing some hands, incorrectly and trying to make it look like they're not playing perfectly. And of course, those guys are still going to have a really big advantage over players who are playing honestly and playing without any kind of assistance. And so it's definitely going to be a tough job for the security teams of all the major poker sites, especially the ones that run high stakes and big buy-in tournaments, to continually do this. And that's why you have to hire really good people who are really on top of this. You can do this algorithmically, because you're not going to be able to just, pick a guy who's a big winner and just go over like all his hand histories and try to figure out his frequencies with everything. Like you have to have software on the site side itself. You've got to create the software to be able to like go through this and use some machine learning, use the tools that you have available, because you're not going to be able to take a real person and just say like, okay, is this guy cheating? Because you're just not going to know that from hand histories. You're going to really have to take a deep dive into the overall look of the guy, where the guy's playing. And probably some guys are going to slip through the cracks, but hopefully the most egregious cheaters are caught.
Okay, so this is important, okay? There is precedent for this in another game. That game is called chess, okay? Online chess tournaments, or anytime chess is being played online, without face-to-face, they actually are able to use an algorithm to find, okay, there is only so much the human brain is capable of doing in terms of like the finite difference between a play being 0.000001% better than the other play, right? So if somebody was using real-time assist to play chess, they have an algorithm to show you that, right? So that's essentially flag one, right? You look at someone's gameplay and you say, okay, well, they're playing relatively close to GTO. Well, they might just be good, right? They might have studied GTO. They may be, and of course they are. Like a lot of these guys at the top level, they are trying to play as close to GTO as they can, right? There is a line that you cross, and as we mentioned, we have some of the brightest minds in the game, dissecting this stuff. This is something that we work with within the community. There is a line that the human brain cannot cross in terms of this sort of stuff. So for example, let's say we're learning GTO, you and me, Terrence, right? And we're learning sort of like in buckets, right? So we say to ourselves, all right, this hand falls in like 30 to 40% of my range, and with this hand, I'm supposed to do this like, 20 to 30%. The human brain can sort of ballpark that, right? Sort of. But can you do specifically exactly 31.8% of the range, and I'm also supposed to bet this like 21.7%? Absolutely not. So when you see somebody hitting the number, the GTO, the GTO baseline so perfectly, so consistently, we just know that the human brain cannot function in that regard. Like let's say, for example, in your distribution of all the possible hands you can get, where's Jack 9 offsuit? What percentage on the peak of your hand?
It's probably like it's probably like a top 40% hand. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, ish, right? So it's like, it's pretty good. I don't know. It's like, is it? But if somebody's constantly, and that's a very simple example, obviously dumbing down so that everyone can understand. But like, there's certain situations where if the person is roughly hitting it, where between 20, 30%, they're in that ballpark, that can be studied, that can be learned. That's how people are learning to play game theory optimal. What they cannot do is hit the pinpoint amount to the exact percentage consistently. And as you said, Terrence, you're always going to have some people who veer from it because they're afraid they're going to get caught. But listen, there's just some specific patterns where if you see the vast majority of someone's play is too fine-tuned to specific exact GTO, solves, I mean, that's flag number one, right? That's not enough. That's not evidence in itself. It's very damning, right? But
especially post-flop, right? If guys are hitting frequencies, right? Like pre-flop, it's like, you can be a savant and kind of solve.
Absolutely. Pre-flop, it's pretty simplistic. But, on the turn in the river, there's so much more complex, equations, stuff like that. But that's just flag number one. That's not going to get you, banned or confiscated. It's going to get your account and everything that you do looked at more extensively to see if there's any other corroborating evidence to say 100% this guy is using real-time system. One of the reasons of many, you can't just tell people, like it's a cat and mouse game, right? You got cheaters trying to cheat, and then you got security team trying to catch them, right? The security team can't tell them exactly what they're looking for and say, if you do, because then the cheaters will just be like, oh, I get it. So you're going to see if I do that, so I'm just going to avoid that and do it another way. There's always going to be people trying to find a way to loophole. So bottom line is this, don't do it, okay? Do not try to cheat because you will get caught and you'll be punished to the fullest, which means money goes bye-bye. GG doesn't take the money. The money goes back to the players that you tried to steal from.
And it was a lot of money. I mean, this, what was it, almost 1.2 million over only 13 accounts. Like usually when you see accounts that have been, historically when we've seen online poker account balances get seized and redistributed in a cash game context, obviously tournaments are different, whether it was for multi-accounting or collusion or whatever, you usually see like a large number of accounts and an average balance that's smaller. I mean, if you have 13 accounts with 1.2 million, that's almost 100,000 per account. Obviously, playing high stakes. I don't know if this was Federer Cruz with multiple accounts. I don't know if there's multiple people involved with this, but playing pretty big, and it speaks to another security thing that a weapon that poker sites have at their disposal, which is of course just KYC, which is know your customer, and being able to identify the people on your site, taking identification from people. Obviously, I could register under my wife's account and play under a second account, but it's hard, and that creates another possible flag that people have to look at. The fact that there wasn't hundreds and thousands of these accounts playing, small stakes. I don't want to see anybody get cheated, but definitely that's more of a concern to the poker ecosystem. Like if you just had 1,000 people doing this at 1-2 is a lot different than one or two guys doing it at 100, 200. I think there's a big difference there. So I mean, it's definitely a positive news for GG this week. I think a positive press outcome for them after, a couple of weeks ago, there was some negativity revolving around, this bum hunting thing and whether GG was banning pros, and we talked about that on the previous show, so we won't rehash it. But I think people can get behind the idea here that their security has scored a victory, I think.
All right, a couple more stories to get to quickly before we hit a couple of voicemails. One of them is I believe the last poker room to reopen is the Wynn. Is the Bellagio open, Daniel? Do you know?
I believe it is. I mean, I'm not going over there, but I'm quite certain that it is. I think Ari is open as well, but yeah, I don't even keep tabs on it because I ain't going.
Yeah. So the Wynn has opened up. Now, to your point, Daniel, at the Wynn, masks are mandatory, which obviously is a good thing, but there's also the plexiglass dividers between everybody. So, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to figure out who thinks this is fun. Like, who's going to go to a poker room and play with the mask on and completely divided in your own little cubicle? I mean, I don't know.
I saw somebody. I don't remember who it was. I wish I could give credit. I did see a tweet. It was like a pro that everybody would know, and I can't remember who it was for the life of me right now. Maybe I'll put it in the comments on the YouTube if I can remember. But somebody did make a very strong argument that there are a lot of people who are just a lot less social, and they're a little less comfortable, and having the dividers between people, they kind of wish it was a thing that would stay. I think that's a minority. I think most people play it as a social game, but I mean, you could definitely see how somebody with a little more anxiety would benefit from the dividers and wish they could stay. I mean, we definitely want six-handed poker to stay, right? We can all get behind that.
It would seem like they would just be playing online, those types of people.
Yeah.
So much more convenient.
Yeah, I mean, live poker is more fun. I mean,
it's different.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. The Wynn is opening up, I believe, tomorrow. Another quick feel-good story, or a feel-good story, is Charlie Godwin turns a $109 satellite. We talked about Darvin turning 130 into 5 million. Charlie Godwin turned 109 online satellite into a $620,000 payday when she finished third at the 100K buy-in World Poker Tour World Online Championship Super High Roller, which was a really cool story because the final table was full of complete total wizards. It was Ike and Christoph Vogelsang, Michael Adamo. I mean, it was just chock full.
The lineup is brutal. As brutal as it gets.
Totally. Yeah. If you follow the high stakes MTT scene, it's just murderer's row. And she ended up finishing third, which was awesome and great story for her. And I think Poker Twitter sort of rallied around it. So that was neat. So, when you're playing those satellites that everybody tries to, parlay their way into a bigger tournament, an online tournament, don't give up, right? I mean, she won her way into 100K and she's got to play against every wizard, but kept the nose down and battled and did great. So that was cool.
Did she even have there she is, for those not watching, did she even have the opportunity to just take the money at some point in the satellite? Because I mean, when you're, I understand when you win a satellite, you sort of feel like you're free rolling, but because she turned 100 into 1,000 and then 1,000 into the 100K, or I don't know the exact path.
That's right.
Could she have cashed out the 100K at one point, or did she just decide YOLO, let's fucking go?
I don't know, but I would imagine she might have had the opportunity to do so, right?
Well, I'll tell you what you can do on, I mean, not that, whatever, it's great that it happened. On GG, and this has happened, where people win like a satellite for like a lot more money than they can go in the lobby and they can sell the rest at a markdown.
Right.
So you basically, let's say
you see that a lot. Yeah, you see guys are selling at 0.95. Yeah.
0.8, like, because for them, I mean, shit, they lock up a big profit. They still have a lot to play for. It can be worth it. And obviously that makes them, you would think a pretty good buy when you get a markdown for somebody who just won a massive satellite into a big event.
All right, moving on. This story happened a couple of weeks ago. We didn't touch on it, but people remember back to last year, the Mike Postle story at Stone's Gambling Hall in Sacramento, I believe. Terrence, you're fantastic.
I got it. It took me a while to find the exact shot of him looking into his crotch.
What's he looking at? Crotch?
Oh, gee, I wonder. I guess he really just likes the size of his own dick.
Yeah. Anyways, this was there was a class action suit. Poker player, lawyer, Mac for Standing represented, I want to say 70 or 80 people that filed a class action suit against Stones. And Justin Corrades, who was the tournament director and thought to be the cooperator of Mike Postle. Of course, it was an allegation. It wasn't proven. And they settled. The class action was settled with Stones. And there was a statement made by Mac for Standing where he basically, and I don't want to read the whole thing because it kind of turns my stomach a little bit, but he basically said that there's no fault found. And, it's one of those statements that lawyers make when they make a settlement, and part of the deal in the settlement is to come out and say, this is what we are agreeing to make this settlement. But if anybody wants to read it, it's pretty easy to find. It basically cleared Corraitis from any long. It's not specific to Mike Postle. It doesn't talk about Postle. It just talks about cheating because that's a different ball of wax at the moment. But this is something that cleared Corraitis. And the problem there for Justin Corraitis was he took to Twitter and started doing a victory lap. And he got really obnoxious on Twitter. A lot of people felt and started berating people, etc. Going back.
I mean, you said stomach turning when you read Mac's thing. I was like, that's not stomach turning. The stomach turning is what Justin Corraitis posted on his own Twitter, and he had this Google Doc talking about how he was exonerated, and there's all this Dude, he deserves an apology. It's gross.
I didn't even know who this guy was, right?
Yeah, it's such a fail, right? Absolutely.
I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who was helping the guy, right? I had no reason to think this guy is guilty of anything. I do now.
Yeah, you're someone in poker. Like, you're someone who's like a well-informed individual in poker. We interviewed Veronica on the show, and you didn't know who he was, except this idiot comes out and says, like, oh, look, he obviously wasn't guilty, and, like, look at how we were totally not involved, and how the court said we were totally not involved, and now you are like, well, I guess he was guilty too. Like, how do you feel if this guy, shows up?
It narrows down the possibility with this guy. Like I said, I didn't know who it was. I don't know who he's working with. I thought it was some guy named Lance or whatever. I don't know. But now, now you look at this guy, JK or whatever, his name is on it, and he's either one of the dumbest and most oblivious persons ever in terms of how poker works. Like, has no idea, how to play poker whatsoever. Because, anybody with 10% of a poker brain can look at what we've seen and be like, this is the most blatantly obvious form of cheating ever. That's why my investigative report on this entire thing was a video that I stole this from Matt Salzberg, where I just said he cheated. That's it, right? Because it's so fucking obvious, right? Either A, he's completely oblivious to how poker works, right? Or B,
in which case he's horribly underqualified to be a director.
And he doesn't understand, and he made every correct decision possible at every turn by accident.
Well, this is the thing. Is this guy says we cherry picked, right? How about this? You've got 1,000 hours of footage. Let's see one fucking hand where this guy bluffed into the nuts, right? Let's see one hand where he has a chop with the other guy and he doesn't overbet to try to get the guy to fold the other half. Find me one piece of evidence. We found a whole bunch that are incriminating. You got nothing. So what it makes me believe, because I don't know who this guy is that he's in on it, that he knows Michael Postle cheated, and he thinks listen, I said from the very beginning, dick all was going to happen to this. Nothing. I mean, everyone's excited that I'm like, listen, nothing's going to happen because the only way that something's going to happen is if you have somebody just turn on him and just spill the beans, because Stones has absolutely zero incentive to work towards this case being something, because it opens up a whole new can of worms of people, alleging that I was cheated, and now like a whole bunch of suits, right? So they have every incentive to squash it, hide it, make it go away, right? So I never felt too highly about something happening. I don't know who this Justin guy is, right? And I would bet like a small amount of money now that, first of all, Postle couldn't pass a lie detector test, but that this clown, right, if he was put under a lie detector test, that he couldn't beat one because he's full of shit. Like, I didn't think this guy had anything to do with it. I don't know. I don't fucking know who he is. And now I'm like, oh, so you're the guy who helped Mike Postle. Duh. Fucking idiot.
Fantastic.
I think he appeared. I think one of his tweets was like, "I'll appear on Joe Ingram for like $20,000," and it's like, how does that make you look more innocent? If you were an innocent person, you would want to go on the show of the person who accused you and answered his question. Oh, it's like this. It's just the most epically bad PR disaster ever. What is he doing?
That was fantastic, because
I got an offer for both of them. If they both, well, whatever, we'll get 3 independent lie detector tests. I'll pay for all 3. Let's bet $10,000 on the result of each one. Okay. We'll ask if there's any improprieties. They got 3 shots at it. I know it's not perfect, and I know they can cheat it because obviously they know how to fucking cheat tech stuff. I'm actually putting myself in the worst spot ever. A guy who's freaking cheating on a live stream.
I was going to say, like, yeah, I think these guys who are like just pathological assholes, I think they could pass the lie detector. I don't know.
Sometimes, right?
I don't like their size. Yeah.
So hang on. What's the wet? They got to pass a lie detector 3 times?
No. Each one is $10K. So if one, like they do 3 individuals, right? Okay. If he passes 2 out of the 3, he wins $10K. If he passes, if he fails all 3, they lose $30K. Obviously, money up front, you scumbag. Okay, I don't fucking trust you, and your fucking sidekick over at Stones, a fucking nutcase who's like could have just went off into the sunset and quietly just went to bed, but he's got to do a fucking look at me, victory lap, nothing happened, and then just incriminate himself. How fucking stupid are you, bro? You're the dumbest fucking guy in poker. I don't even know how the fuck you have a job. You're so fucking stupid. So you know what you should do is you should run for president. You're about as fucking spurned up to do that. Fucking idiot.
You're good. So the best part about this is while he's doing his victory lap on Twitter, Phil Galfond had enough of it. He just has, and this is one of the busiest guys in poker, right? I mean, he's trying to run a poker site. He's got challenges out the ass. He's doing all kinds of stuff. He finally had enough of it, and he tweets out, "I'm a busy guy. I probably wasn't ever going to think about Postle again." But at JFK Poker TD, which is Justin Creditas' Twitter, and Stones Gambling responded to a legal, in quotes, victory by taunting the victims. Puke emoji. If we get all the hand histories into PT or a spreadsheet, I'll create a detailed report with proof or lack thereof myself. So, which cements Phil as poker's Batman to me. Like, it was just like the bat signal went out, and Galfond just went, "Okay, fine. You guys put it into a spreadsheet. I'll run a detailed analysis and figure out exactly what happened here, one way or the other." Like, Phil's an open-minded guy. Like, if you can't trust Phil Galfond to come to a conclusion that either he looks and finds no evidence, or he finds most likely all the evidence, which is hilarious, because he wouldn't have ever done anything if to Daniel's point, if Creditas just rides off into the sunset. He can go and say, "Look, nothing happened. The court's decided I wasn't. If anybody asks him." But instead, he's got to taunt people, right? And now Galfond's had enough of it, and he said, "Okay, everybody, we're going to crowdsource this. You guys all put it into a database, and I'm going to go through it." Which I just thought was awesome, and way to go, Phil. Like he doesn't have enough to do. But anyway, if you do want to read, there was also a Wired magazine article. And it posted, I know it's happened like, a year ago, but there's a really good article in Wired Magazine. And again, this isn't traditional poker media. This isn't a poker player who detailed it, or a poker writer. This is a Wired writer who just dove into it. And it's a super exhaustive description of exactly what happened in some of the details. So search Wired, Mike Postle. You'll find the article if you're at all interested in finding out exactly what happened, because it's detailed perfectly there. And speaking of Galfond, the next installment of the Galfond Challenge is underway. He's battling Chance Corneth. He's playing they are playing 35,000 hands of 100, 200 PLO on WSOP.com. The side bet is Phil Galfond has put up $1 million versus Chance's 250,000 to see who the winner is after 35,000 hands. 4 days in, they're pretty close to even. So if you're at all interested, head on over. I believe they're Twitch streaming that one as well, so check that out. All right, let's move on to some tweets real quick. Roscoe, you got the drop ready? Is the drop going?
You're going surfing on the internet.
Awesome. All right, first tweet. Yo, my guy, at Real Kid Poker. And, we need to figure out exactly what Riddick... This is Riddick Bowe, at Riddick Bowe, of course, the heavyweight champion from back in the day. Yo, my guy, at Real Kid Poker. Why them guy at GG Poker Official, big league the champ, man, and show that disrespect? Who ass I got to beat? Bowe. I love how he just signed it.
Oh, you have no idea. Okay, so me and Stapes have a funny... Riddick Bowe's been reaching out to both of us, right? He does every single message, DM or tweet, he ends with Bowe.
That's so good.
It's like, I got to... Every single time he ends a message, and, it's like he's reminding you.
He's Bowe. Like you forgot.
Bowe.
Bowe.
You my Dan. Hit me up. Bowe. Okay, my guy. Bowe.
Love it.
Yo, my man, you know anyone high up at Facebook? Bowe. It's like every single one. Just Bowe.
Nobody at Facebook.
He signs his
So what the
name.
hell is he talking about? What
What does he want at Facebook? What's Facebook called?
I don't know, man.
What is I don't, you're gonna have to, like, back in the day there was the Sean Deeb tweet translator. What is he talking about?
He was asking me if I know somebody high up at Facebook. I don't know. But
No, this one, the GG Poker one.
The GG Poker.
How are they big leaguing the champ?
To play the big league. I think he thinks it's boxing and he needs to get a title shot. Like in boxing, you have to kind of, get the promoter.
So you have no idea either, is what you're saying?
Huh?
You also have no idea what he's saying.
Well, yeah, that too.
I thought he was like a new ambassador. Is he not?
Is he? Is he an ambassador for GG? No.
I don't know if that's not. He's he's a guy who.
He's the champ.
He's on
all right.
Influencer tab, I guess.
Okay.
At Pads Poker, this is Patrick Leonard, of course. If the first two players who started a cash game online got 10% of the rake generated from all players on the table until they leave, including all six-handed action, would this make people really incentivized to start more games and less incentivized to bum hunt? They'd be affiliates. I thought this was a pretty cool idea. I don't know if it's something. I don't know what would happen as a result if you snapped your fingers and this policy was implemented. Would games just start and then continue? And maybe because it's more profitable.
It's been done. I mean, not with this specific number, but Ultimate Bet. For all their problems, back in the day, they awarded double loyalty points or whatever it was if you were a table starter, if you were one of the first two people at the table and stayed as long. And I always started tables on Ultimate Poker for that reason. I got a little extra rake back from it. I think it's a good idea. It's not terribly new. I don't claim to be an ecosystem expert, but I think you want people starting tables. And yeah, it seems helpful. But it's not new. It's back in the day, back on UB, 10 plus years ago, it existed.
I like it more if the game starter or the game starters are both non-professional players, right? So that they are getting the extra bonus because they're the ones that are probably going to lose in the end, right? Unfortunately, what you typically have when two people start a game is it's often two professionals, right? I think this may, though, if two casual players knew about this, either A, they can sit at a table, which is going to fill up immediately anyway, and then they get a piece of everything. At least they get something back, and you could make it even more than 10% in those cases. Or maybe you have two people who are, both not pros, start the game together. But really all you need is one. So what it would help with is that player who is the quote-unquote fish, who normally sits down, and the game fills up instantly with a bunch of pros, right, who have seat scripts and all that kind of stuff, and just felt the guy. That guy specifically is he's the kind of player that I'd like to see benefit more than guys who are professional players who are also going to get added bonus for starting it. I like it overall. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a cool idea, either way, but I'd like to really see it tilt towards a game where a lot of private games I used to play in Toronto or whatever that still go on in places is sometimes the game is run by the whale. Okay. And the way the whale justifies playing in this game is he charges a reasonably high rake. And he loses a lot of the rake back. He loses most of it back, but it allows him to stay in the game and play, and everyone gets to play in a really, really good game. So for me, it's important from the ecosystem perspective that money is going to the right hands. And I don't know how you could police that specifically, but as I said, overall, I like the idea either way, whether pros get it or whether amateurs. I prefer the trickle up system where you give the guys who lose more to start the engine, and then it trickles up anyway.
All right, let's move on to a couple of voicemails, and we'll leave it at that. Roscoe, what do you got?
All right. So I have
Email number 1.
Hey guys, this is David. I was calling about Maria Konikova's book, The Biggest Bluff. I really enjoyed it, and I was wondering if any of you guys had ever met Maria or played poker with her or anything. I think she'd be an excellent guest for your show one day. Also, Daniel, taking your master class and really gotten a lot out of that. I appreciate all the very good advice. Good luck to you in Mexico. Bye-bye.
All right, Maria would be an awesome guest. I think I've heard her on other podcasts. You know, one of those things, we don't do a ton of guests. We do have Phil Ivey for show number 100. I know that. That's 15 shows away. But we don't do a lot of guests, given that we have 4 people on this call. And, you know, we don't, interviews really wasn't the premise for this show. It was more kicking around some stuff that's going on in poker. Will that change down the line? Maybe, who knows? We'll see. But she's been on lots of other podcasts as well, and she's done fantastic. And you guys have read the book, right, Dan or Terrence?
Yes.
I know you.
I've read the book. I loved it. I actually had the audio and the text, so I could do both. Kind of listen to the audio when I was in bed and read the text when I was sitting on the couch. Thought it was fantastic. She hosted an episode of Freakonomics Radio. Yeah, she's great. I met her very briefly at like the PCA party, so she was nice, but I haven't spent any real time with her. Daniel, which did her time as a Stars Pro overlap with yours, or were you done when she started?
Oh no, we did. Yeah, so
Okay.
like we were obviously part of the same team for a little bit, and she was always pleasant, like always like really engaging. I remember, being around during the entire year, like her first year when she was under the wing of like Eric Seidel and and a lot of guys like Phil Galfond and Jason Kuhn, and she seemed to really just interject herself into it. And then I remember she, winning a tournament. The whole story is really, really great. She's incredibly well spoken, and the hope, I guess, from the book community was she hits a demographic of people that are like, okay, well, I'm intelligent, I'm, good at problem solving, and I'm, I have a normal life. Like I could learn how to play poker and possibly succeed at it. And I think it was very relatable to a lot of people. And she does. As you said, she's, like a great interview, and I would be happy to have her, I think, because like she's got, I have not read it yet because I don't do the listening audio, and I have it on my list, but I haven't read it yet. But every single person I know that has read the book has had raving reviews for it.
When you do cardio, you don't listen to any books or podcasts?
I listen to podcasts, and I have like 50 of them.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, I guess there would be an awful lot of cardio unless you're training for a marathon.
Well, actually, I don't really do cardio anyway. What am I talking about? You said cardio. When I weight train, I listen to podcasts.
Okay.
I really don't. I don't do cardio. I'm bulking anyway.
Fair enough.
Okay, recommend one podcast. Danny, you go first.
Well, hang on. Let me go next.
I know. I mean, I'm just like, you
I'll
sent
go.
me on like a mad scram. I'm like, I love podcasts so much. Go.
Talking Sopranos. This is Michael Imperioli, who played Chrissy, and Bobby Bacala, Steve Sherpa. Steve Sherpa is, and they go through these 2 guys. They were main part of The Sopranos. They haven't watched the episodes. Of course, it's like, 4 of us, we don't watch this podcast. We did it. So these guys never watched any of the Sopranos episodes. So they're going back through each episode of the 6 seasons and doing an entire podcast on each episode and talking about behind the stuff scenes. It's fantastic. And both of these guys are great storytellers. So if you're at all interested in The Sopranos, and it's one of my favorite shows of all time, it might interest you. Talking Sopranos.
And of course, we're all Dan Carlin fans around here. We've
Dan
talked about
Carlin
that
goes
a bunch
on. Yeah, no, I mean one that maybe people haven't heard.
Okay, I would go with Reply All. I mean, Reply All is pretty big now, but it's a great show about the internet and all the crazy things that happen on the internet and how they relate to the real world. I like Reply All.
Roscoe, what do you got?
I have 2 that I've subscribed to on Patreon recently, and that is TrueAnon. It is they're both kind of like political discovery podcasts, and Chapo Trap House for my libtards out there.
Yeah,
Is that
for
some
me,
new ink? Well, you got some new ink there, Roscoe? Flash us the ink there. What do you got?
New Ink. Yeah.
Oh,
Holy mackerel.
So for me, my podcasts are like either hockey, they are either like stupid vegan podcasts, or they're like political. Like that's my entire genre. So the one that I think maybe some people haven't listened to, and I just, I like I like what they talk about the business side of hockey, because a lot of them I said are hockey. This is the 31 Thoughts podcast with Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman. Talk about all issues. Really, it's different. I listen to the Hockey Central pod, which is day to day. Also the Vegas Golden Knights Insider Show. Listen to that stuff. That's day to day stuff. But usually the 31 Thoughts is kind of like bigger, overarching ideas and stuff relating to the business side of hockey. And it's actually kind of fun now, considering free agency and all that stuff. Like, I actually find hockey more interesting now than I did while the Stanley Cup playoffs was going on, because now it starts, like the excitement for next year and for my fantasy league and for trades and for free agencies and stuff. So that I find the business side fun.
Roster building is fantastic, is fascinating, and that's why we all like playing fantasy hockey or fantasy football, whatever, because we like the process of roster building.
Like,
right?
even when people come up with dumb trades, like I saw on your feed, people talking about Jack Eichel for Alex Lafreniere. It's like, you guys on crack? Like,
what?
You have a guy who's already really awesome and elite, and you want to trade him for somebody who might possibly be close to that in a few years, maybe? Like, what are you talking about?
On the wing? Yeah, no. I heard something interesting that Pietrangelo, that there's a chance Vegas. Is this true? Vegas might go after him?
He's prime suspect for Vegas. I would say he's the leading candidate. But obviously they need to move a lot of money around. And this isn't a hockey podcast, but you can imagine with, if Lehner's supposedly getting $5 million, Fleury's getting $7 million, that's 12. That's too much for goalies. Stasny makes about 6.5. So there'll be movement, either way.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, that's going to wrap up. I know we talked about it a bunch of weeks ago, but the end of my a weight loss bet that I'm in, and we talked about it. And Remco is the person, Remka. Of course, he is spearheaded this. He organized it. There's 15 of us on June 7th. Back on June 7th, we all had 4 months to lose 10% of our body weight. So the last weigh-in is next Wednesday. So we're all in a group chat, and we're scrambling to make sure we get it. For those that don't make it, for every pound you miss it by, you have to pay $500 into the group.
And any clauses for keeping it off?
No, but there's going to be a continuation. There'll be the next one.
All right.
I think Remco's crushing it with all that cycling he's doing.
He's going nuts. Yeah, he's the whole last
Dutch people in cycling, right?
Yeah,
and speed skating.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, one more thing. We all forgot to mention this, and we all forgot, but Brad Booth was found.
Right.
Since we did the last show. So Brad Booth found safe. I don't have any details. I don't know if you guys have any details.
I'll tell you what. I love Brad Booth, but I'm fucking pissed at Brad Booth. You know what I mean? It's like, love this guy, but what the fuck you doing, man?
Yeah, leave a note, dude.
Getting off the grid, not telling anybody you are. You're scaring your family, scaring everybody. I hope he's okay. I don't know the details, as I said, whether, what happened, but I'm glad he's alive, but I want to kill him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's I've spent a lot of time with him he up here and abroad, and he's a great guy. And I know, he's had his issues and he's had some problems, but he's a really good guy. And I know it's easy to say that when people have lost money with him, but I'm glad he's found it. It's an excellent point, Terrence, and I can't believe we forgot to mention it. Great finish. His family said he just, he's been found, and that's all they're going to release at the moment, and maybe somewhere down the line we can have a chat with them about it. But fantastic news for sure. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Thanks to you three guys for getting together and doing this podcast, and thanks to everybody out there for watching. Thank you, and leave us a. Are we doing this mash subscribe? We're not doing that thing, right? We're not begging. We're not asking.
That's Ross's job.
Yeah, Ross.
Yeah, subscribe,
Whatever you're going to do. Yeah. All right. We will talk to you soon. Thanks.
Bye.